It always began with a sound, the sharp ring of that final school bell echoing through the hallways like the starting shot to a race. No speeches, no confetti, just the unmistakable buzz that meant one thing: school was out. You pushed back from your desk, the surface still covered in carved initials and dried Elmer's glue, and with a breathless laugh, you were gone. Down the hallway, out the doors, into summer. There weren't any kindergarten graduations or last day slideshows back then. No one filmed you walking to the bus with a sign that said, "Last day of third grade." The memories weren't posted, they were lived. And when that last Monday morning rolled around, the difference was immediate. No alarm, no shoes, just the golden summer light slipping through the curtains and the sound of sprinklers on the neighbor's lawn. You didn't need a calendar to know what time of year it was. Summer had a smell: fresh cut grass, distant charcoal, maybe the tang of a plastic pool warming in the sun. It had a feeling, too. That first day with nothing to do felt like standing at the edge of a great wide ocean, with no map and no schedule. You might sit in your pajamas a little longer, watch some cartoons, eat cereal straight from the box. But sooner or later someone, probably Mom, would peek in and say, "Why are you still inside?" And just like that, your day would begin. What would you do with it? That was up to you. Because in the 1970s, summer didn't come with a to-do list. It came with a bike, a couple of friends, and the promise of something waiting just beyond the end of your block, maybe even just around the corner. Back in the 1970s, there was an unspoken rule in most households: if you were a kid and the sun was up, you belonged outside. Mothers loved you, sure, but summertime wasn't an invitation to linger. The moment you finished breakfast, usually something colorful and full of sugar, Mom would look over her coffee cup and tell you to go play. It sounded gentle, but it wasn't optional. If your mom stayed home, the house was her office, and you hanging around was like showing up uninvited to someone else's job. If you complained about being bored, you were suddenly dusting baseboards or scrubbing patio furniture. And if both your parents worked, well, you were free range. You kept your own time, make your own choices, solve boredom your own way. Supervision? There wasn't much. You were trusted in the way we don't often trust kids today. Trusted to ride your bike across town, to jump creeks, to scrape your knees and slap a Band-Aid on it without anyone calling a doctor. Lunch was maybe a sandwich scrounged together at a friend's house. Water? From the garden hose, obviously. You showed up for dinner, usually sunburned and filthy, and that meant your job was done. Parents might glance out the window if things got too quiet, but otherwise, sunscreen or constant check-ins. The freedom felt endless. The days were guided by bicycle wheels, sneakers, and whatever trouble you could get into without getting caught. You learned lessons by living them, not being told about them. And as long as you were home by the time the streetlights flicked on and hadn't broken a bone, it was all considered a good day. Making the rounds. Can Adam come out and play? Back in the 70s, making plans didn't involve texting or group chats. It was simpler and somehow much more magical. You started with a single goal: find someone to hang out with. And how did you do that? You got up, put your shoes on, maybe not even both, and started walking down the street. Usually you began at your best friend's house. Maybe it was Adam. You'd stand at the edge of the porch, press your face against the screen door, and call out, "Can Adam come out and play?" That phrase was the key that unlocked a whole afternoon. If his mom said yes, the day had already begun. If not, you shrugged, turned, and rode your bike, or walked on to the next. You might have made 5 stops, maybe more. You rarely called ahead unless things were really serious, and if you did use the phone, it was the big beige rotary in the kitchen, with the curly cord stretched tight down the hallway for some privacy. You probably had a few numbers memorized, and you never knew who'd answer. Sometimes it was a sibling you were nervous to talk to, or a parent who didn't even ask who was calling. When you finally pulled enough people together, then the plan was made. It might be a pickup game in someone's backyard, a ride to the playground, or just to wander and see what happened next. There was something beautiful about how loose it all was. You didn't worry about cancellations or time windows. The day unfolded one knock at a time, and without even trying, you were learning something about friendship, about persistence, and about the joy of small, everyday adventures that started with 5 simple words. Can they come out and play? In the 1970s, before you ever held a car key, your first real taste of freedom came on 2 wheels. That bike in your garage, or more likely, laying somewhere in the yard, wasn't just transportation. It was everything. A Schwinn Stingray if you were lucky, a Huffy Thunder Road or Sears Free Spirit if you weren't. But even the cheap ones felt like gold. You didn't think about brand names back then. Not really. What mattered was how it felt when you pedaled downhill, when the wind caught your shirt, or when you went no hands and didn't fall. Your bike was your badge of independence, your spaceship, your getaway car. Most of the time it was decked out with custom touches, handlebar streamers, a playing card in the spokes, maybe a raccoon tail wrapped onto the rear frame. You might have had beads that clicked with every turn of the wheel, or a cracked reflector that never quite faced there. The right direction. You rode it everywhere. No GPS, no helmets, just you. Figuring it out as you went. Asphalt stretching like freedom in front of you. You park it on its side in the grass or lean it against a friend's brick mailbox. And if someone's bike was outside, that meant they were home. No need to knock. And the best part? You didn't need a plan. You had a bike. That sound of rubber tires humming against the sidewalk, mixed with the buzz of cicadas and the steady flap of those streamers in the breeze. It became summer's own music. Quiet, steady, free. You didn't ride for exercise. You didn't ride for show. You rode to chase the sun, to find your friends, to feel like the world, even just your corner of it, was yours to explore. Today's playgrounds feel safe, carefully engineered, plastic-wrapped, softly padded spaces where everything is rounded, monitored, and age-appropriate. But if you grew up in the 1970s, your playground looked and felt very different. Most of them were made of solid metal, steel towers bolted to cracked pavement or beds of packed gravel. On a good day, you'd get wood chips. On a bad day, concrete. And in the middle of July, those structures could turn blistering hot. So hot the slide could actually burn your legs if you forgot to test it first. But still, you slid. There were straight slides that went down at terrifying angles. Monkey bars so high your feet barely touched when you hung. You'd clamber across them until your hands bled or your grip failed. And if you fell, you fell. You got up. Maybe I cried a little. And then you climbed back up because bravery was expected. It was part of play. The rocket ship towers were the crown jewels. Painted red, white, and blue, these towering playground beacons always felt like they could take off at any moment. 5 feet up, 10 feet up, enclosed in a steel cylinder with tiny windows and a ladder going higher and higher inside. It was a spaceship and a fortress all in one. Sometimes it smelled like rust inside, but to you it was the moon. Rust was normal. Flaking lead paint? Just part of the color scheme. Danger didn't have a warning label. But somehow you learned to trust yourself, to climb, to leap, to balance, and to believe you could make it. These weren't just playgrounds. They were the obstacle courses for future explorers, astronauts, and corner lot champions. They weren't always safe, but they were unforgettable. And for kids growing up in the 1970s, they were absolutely perfect. There was nothing quite like a public pool in the 1970s. It buzzed, literally and figuratively. The air hummed with the sound of splashes and shrieks and sunburnt laughter. The pavement, warm under your bare feet, smelled faintly of hot concrete and coconut-scented suntan lotion. You could hear the static hum of a transistor radio playing something from Three Dog Night, and somewhere in the background, a lifeguard's whistle broke the rhythm every few minutes, usually to scold someone for running or pulling off a too big cannonball near the shallow end. You came equipped with a rolled-up towel, $1 in change, and your best hopes of impressing someone from homeroom. Maybe you dove for pennies or tried to hold your breath across the deep end. But most of all, you waited for your turn on the diving board. The low one was fun, sure, but it was the high dive that told the world you weren't a kid anymore. Climbing that ladder was like waiting to blast into orbit. With each rung, your heart thudded louder. But there was no turning back, not with the line behind you and your friends watching. You'd inch to the edge, toes curling over worn rubber, and take that leap. Arms flailing, maybe. Belly flopping, maybe nailing the perfect cannonball, but always resurfacing to cheers. By the end of the day, you were wilted from sun and chlorine. Your fingers wrinkled like raisins. Your eyes burned a little, and your skin smelled like pool water all the way home. But more than that, you carried the memory of being wild and weightless, suspended under the surface, or high above it, for those perfect few seconds of mid-air flight. Every neighborhood had one. That one hill, the steep one, the scary one, the glorious one. The one that, depending on how brave or how reckless you felt that day, could either turn you into a summer legend or send you rolling home with gravel in your knees and tears in your eyes. It was never just a hill. To adults, it was just a slope, a bump in the neighborhood, a shortcut on a walk to school, maybe even an annoyance when it snowed. But to us, that hill was something entirely different. It was a runway, a stage set against suburban skies, where cheap sneakers gripped rubber pedals and bravery was measured in inches of air, the kind of stage that didn't require tickets, costumes, or permission. You just showed up, circled back far enough to build speed, and gave it all you had. At the very bottom of that hill, tilted like a launch pad carved into the earth by time, was where it really happened. That was the arena, the proving grounds, and at its center sat a homemade bike ramp, cobbled together from whatever you could drag, lift, or borrow from someone's backyard. It might have been a warped piece of rotting plywood, pulled from behind your neighbor's shed, a wobbly stack of bricks, a cinder block, maybe cracked but still good, a beam of old fencing that used to outline someone's dog run. You dragged the pieces like sacred puzzle parts and assembled them with the confidence only a 10-year-old can possess. No screws, no plans, just faith. There were no test runs, no engineers checking angles, no laser levels or adult eyes peeking over shoulders to say, "That's probably not safe." That was the beauty of it. It wasn't safe. And deep down, that was the point. You eyed the ramp from afar, circled back on your banana seat bike, gripped the handlebars, taped, cracked, maybe half covered in old hockey stick foam, and pushed off with everything you had. Shoes grinding pedals, legs pumping like pistons. The breeze smacked your face and whistled through your teeth. Your heart pounded. The grass blurred. The ramp came closer, and you flew, even if your front tire barely cleared the edge. Even if your landing was 2 inches from disaster. To you, the sky opened. You caught air, and for a heartbeat, you forgot about gravity. Every kid became Evel Knievel for a few beautiful seconds. The target changed day to day. Sometimes it was garbage cans lined end to end like buses. Sometimes it was your buddies' bikes tipped sideways. And there were times, the boldest times. People, not mannequins, not crash test dummies. People, your friends, lying still, arms to the side, trusting that your size 3 sneaker wouldn't ease up for 1 second, believing you'd sail just above their heads. Nobody wore helmets. No one checked weight limits or calculated ramp slope to speed ratio. That wasn't part of the equation. You just hoped the wood would hold and the tires wouldn't slip. Wish for soft grass if you went flying the wrong way. So maybe you haven't pedaled down a hill in decades or chased fireflies in the dark, but if any part of this took you back to the smell of a neighbor's grill, the clang of a screen door, or the soft hum of summer sleep, then you carry those memories too. We'd love for you to share one of them in the comments. What was your favorite 1970s summer moment? And if this little trip down memory lane meant something to you, consider liking, subscribing, or just sticking around. Because here, we're always walking back to yesterday, together.